Hello, this is a tutorial. Today I'd like to talk about the 360 image and also a possible way you can create a sky dorm. Um, so first, I'd like to show you this is the current projects we are working on. And you can see this sky dorm is a little bit different from others. It does give you this kind of flat ground you are able to navigate. This is very similar like the HDR backdrop in Unreal. So I will explain a little bit how I made this step by step. Actually, not using the HDR backdrop, but using a kind of like a spherical geometry. So first, if you recall, previously we created the sky dorm. We call the skybox, right? So this one is a static mesh. If I double click, you can see it's basically a sphere, right? If I zoom out, you can see this is a sphere. If I check the wireframe, this is basically just a sphere. It looks pretty okay in a 360 image you can wrap around, but it does not really give you the flat ground. So instead, using the sphere, I can create another similar kind of sky geometry. And this one, instead of have a sphere, is actually a half sphere, right? There is a beveled edges at the bottom, and then you can see a relatively flat uh, ground level, right, or the floor level. So this does give you a little bit 3 dimension. Again, it's not really truly 3D. So if you really go closer to the edge, you can see it's a 360 image wraparound. But it gives you a little bit better perception of space. This works especially well if you have a big open environment like cul-de-sac or in open landscape. It does not work very well with the interior, so just keep that in mind. So I will show you a little bit how I made this step by step. So first I did is I used the HDR backdrop in Unreal, and then I export it into any 3D software. You can use Blender, Maya, whatever. So I happen to use Maya. Maya is my actually second favorite program. So I brought this geometry into Maya, and you can see this is actually the shape of this geometry. I do add a little bit editing of the edges. I just want to make the edge kind of closer to the middle, so you give this kind of extra edges um, to subdivide the ground. And then I create a spherical UV mapping. Again, this is the typical work you can do when you apply UV mapping in Maya. And here I can actually show you what the UV map looks like. So here, if I open the UV editor, right, go to UV, oops, right, you can see this is UV lines kind of unwrapped along the surface, right? I have applied this 360 image. The key point is in this image, you do want to have a sort of like a horizon, right? So if you think about vantage point and the horizon, this is kind of in the middle. Um, and you can see the UV lines is aligned or mapped to this horizon. So basically, if you have multiple buildings, if you have something really far away, right, this roughly is the horizon. You can see this is all the concentration of horizons. And then from this line to the bottom, this is basically your ground. So this will be mapped into the circular flat surface. So that means in the future, if you want to create a 360 image, you want to using this, flat environmental dorm, you probably want to adjust your image, sort of make it as a horizon in the middle. Roughly, the sky should take a third, the ground should take a third, and whatever in the middle take a third. And also, you want to make sure the UV concentrated lines along the horizon is kind of in the middle. Okay, so this is a little bit requirement you need to adjust your image. So once you have this in, The reason this is black because it's the single-sided surface. So if I get closer inside, right? So this is what it looks inside. And if I turn on the number 6 in Maya, I can actually display the the texture. You can see this is actually uh, how the environment looks like in Maya. I'm holding the Alt key. Yeah, forgot hot key. All right, so you can see the things are wrapped around, and here is the ground, right? And this is all the geometries. In the future, when you bring that back into Unreal, you do need to kind of control the scale, right? So if this is too small, it will break the perception. So it has to be large enough. So then I exported Maya into FBX, and I bring that into Unreal. In Unreal, when you import, make sure you turn off or you get rid of all the LOD. So that will preserve just original geometries of Maya. If you do have LOD 1, 2, or 0, 1, 2, just make sure you delete all the extra LOD. You want to see the original LOD, right? So that's a higher resolution. Then have this sky dorm. That looks pretty awesome here. And then I can drag it to the stage, and then I can use it. So this is the typical way if you want to do it manually. In Blender or Maya, create this, I call it flat sky dorm. This is the way to make it work. I will show you another very similar approach, but it's just using HDR backdrop. There's some advantage. You can control the scale and height of the camera. So I will cover that in the next session. All right, then let's talk a little bit about the HDR backdrop. So first, you want to go to plugins and you want to search HDR backdrop. Just make sure you check, restart, then you have it. Then here, when you add new actors, you can type HDR. Here is the HDR backdrop. You can drag and drop. That's it. So the difference between the HDR backdrop and the method I just showed you in the first session is, in the first session, you have to input a geometry. So I have just put it in. And this geometry has basically a texture mapping as a 360 texture. You don't really have much adjustment. But it is really convenient. You don't have to do HDR. You don't have to worry about compile the shader into Quest and mobile VR. It all works. However, if you want to do advantage of the HDR, you can definitely using HDR backdrop instead of my manual way. So here I will show you a level I created using HDR backdrop. Okay. So first, this is HDR backdrop. I just drag and drop, right? And then here in the cube map, you have to create your own cube map. So wonder what exactly is this? This is basically a HDR image. If I double click, you can see this image looks like this. Basically, the 360 image I captured from Google Street View. If you want to do something similar, I can show you. Let me. Right, you can just Google this software called Street View Download 360, free. What this will do is you can basically input the URL of a Google Street Map 360, and they can capture the high resolution image for you. You don't really have to go this high. I think roughly 6,000 by 3,000 should be good enough. Okay, so you can download the image, and once you download the image, you can bring that into Unreal. So basically, oh yeah, one more thing. Before you bring the JPEG into Unreal, you probably want to convert it to HDR. So just Google convert PNG to HDR. You can find lots of online free app PNG to HDR. Yeah, I'm using the convert IO. This will do the job pretty easily. Okay, so once you have the HDR file, just drag it in. Then you can set up the map settings as no MIP maps. I usually also change the compression to HDR RGB. A means alpha, and no sRGB. So this is the compression you need. And the resolution, you can tell, is about 2048. You don't really have to go crazy high. 2400, 3200, that's enough. Okay. I actually did the 2400. That's the reasonable size. Okay, so once you have that, then you can drag it into the cube map. Then you can see it. So I will play, just give you a little bit idea what this HDR looks like. So it looks pretty three-dimension, right? Because it's not a sphere, it's a flat bottom sphere. So here, if I walk a little bit, you do have the sense of flat surface. You can also bring some 3D objects in to kind of reinforce the perception. So here you can see the tree is actually 3D. These bushes, the mailbox are all 3D. Garbage bin is a 3D. If I go here, here's another mailbox, 3D. The bicycle is a 3D, right? So you can add some 3D stuff in. But if I really move forward further away from the center, maybe I would just fly. So you can see the perception is wrong, right? It's like a black hole. Everything is stretched as noodles. You never really, well, you can actually go through the surface, but further away from the center, you see the reality is like this. So you don't want to be too far away from the center. And you can see the way the HDR backdrop is mapping is stretch the UVs. Really depends on two settings. First one is the camera perspective, camera height. The second is scale. So here, if I show you a little bit, when you click HDR, you have this first is the size 600. If I increase the size, you see it's gonna change the perception, the perspective a little bit. So if you make it really small, it's like a distorted. So I will go back to 600. Right. And also another setting you can change is the Z value, which is basically represented height of the camera. This is a centimeter. Okay. So if you take this, say this is a Google car, automatically taking the picture, probably the height is 200, right? But you can make adjustment to make the thing believable. I think 200 is not too bad, but really depends on your image. Sometimes you need to make adjustment, because I want to make the ground feels extra flat, right? Otherwise, you can see the building stretched a little bit too much. So I will just changing the height to 300. So now if I play, you don't have that kind of stretch. So that's definitely two settings you can play with. The camera height as well as the size. Let's do 200 just to test. Yeah, actually 200 is not bad, right? This is pretty close to to the reality. But if you do a 200, you probably want to readjust the location of this mailbox, the 3D bins, the trees to match. So I will actually go back to 350. Okay, here we go. So that will give me the whole, even I fly up a little bit, you see the perception is not bad, right? I go down. So this is a quick way you can use in 360 to compile an environment, right? Just make sure, think about the depths of your rendering. If something really close to you, like this vehicle, you should do it as a 3D objects or like this mailbox. But anything far away on the horizon, you can keep them as 360 image, and you can definitely using the layers, in the different distance, in the depths, to give you that perception. Okay, so this is a quick way you can you can create a 3D space. I'm pretty far away from the center, right? So you see that everything is stretched now. But the tree is 3D, so they are not too bad. And here I can still have a little bit vantage point 3D perspectives. But see, this part is really stretched. All right, I think that's it about the HDR backdrop. I do want to show you another one really quick. This one is about using AI to generate a 360 image. So I will using this level as example. This one I got a few objects from Kai and Maria. I think they download this from the 3D AI. I think this one is maybe from Roden. And also I did a really quick 360 image. This one is basically HDR. I converted based on an AI generated image. I just using 360 panorama, with equal rectangular projection. I add a few text prompt, right? So the point is, when you create this 360 AI generated panorama, make sure you have a horizon sort of in the middle. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the ground should take about 1/3 and the sky should take about 1/3. And you do want to have the building sort of concentrated in the middle. Okay. So this is the kind of rule you have to follow. Okay. And if you take a look at this one, HDR image, right? That's basically captured from the Google Street View. This is what I mentioned: 1/3 sky, 1/3 ground, and then the building is in the middle. So if you do generate an AI image, you can actually using this one as your reference. In Photoshop, you can do the deformation based on grade, right? You can kind of deform your original rendering to match this kind of proportion. And I will show you two images I rendered through AI. This is basically just Laura with 360 built on the Stable Diffusion checkpoint XL. And then I did upscale probably 3 times. You see maybe 2 times, 3 times. See, the resolution is not super high, 3200 pixels, right? So give you this kind of future realistic one. And I create another one, kind of the same text prompt, and then upscaled, so you can see that. Just make sure when you bring in, change the MIP to no MIP maps, and change compression to HDR RGB, no sRGB. So that's the setting you want. So if I want to using this in my, this new level, let me play a little bit. Same rule, right? So this looks like Hong Kong. You have the 360 ground. You have a bunch of 3D objects. These are the real car in 3D, garbage bin, police car. They do casting a really nice shadow. Right, some bicycles, mailbox, video wall. Right, this is all kind of in the near and the middle ground. But in the further distance, you can see this one is HDR backdrop, and this is a skyscraper. So that's a purely just an image. And if you want to adjust the settings, so for example, I want to give a little bit adjustment for the placement center, the Z value, right? So right now it's a 350, 250. I can make it maybe a little bit higher, so I can use my mouse, drag this value up. So you can see this will actually change the perception, right? If I make it really high, you can see the distortion of the sky, the projection center. So I will probably choose the human height, 200, right? That's not too bad. Another thing I like to change is the size. So this size is significantly bigger because it's a skyscraper. So here, if I lower the values, you can definitely see it start to break the perception, right? It's a tiny sphere now. So you want to Control Z to go back. This is about 2000. right? So that's the size of the skyscraper. And also add a little bit Niagara system. This is the flying drone in the sky. I'll just give a little bit more dynamics. So that make this thing looks quite nice. And then if I walk, you can see the all the 360 image with a flat ground. Okay. You can't really go too far. If I shift fly, you see this is start to be stretched. Okay. But the model is really large. So this building is supposed to be very far away from you. Right? If I go up, you can see the kind of HDR backdrop, how this thing was composed. And if I want to use a different, let's see, HDR image, this is kind of like a Star Wars, right? Looks okay, but probably if I go play, you might see the image on the ground is a little bit too close to you. This building looks all right. So what I will do is to make adjustment, right? Because when you design this in AI, it doesn't really have a human perspective. So in this case, you probably want to adjust the height. Let's make sure the height is relatively matching the height of that image in AI. You can also adjust the size. So if you think the size is a little bit too large or too small, you can make adjustment. Okay. I also have a 3D skyscraper right here. This one is a truly 3D, just to let you know. So you can push the building further away. Um, I think I have a blue sky dorm there, so you kind of know the difference. Now these are pretty far away. Because also I think I have an environmental fog. Yeah, right here. That's the reason it's got a little bit bluish, but I like it. Um, I think I can maybe adjust the height a little bit more. Yeah. I think this AI image probably height is really high. So this is about 10 meters, 9 meters, 10 meters high. Okay, so you have to make adjustment depends on which HDR image you bring in. This one looks actually pretty good, right? You have everything pretty far away. If I go up, I can see a little bit on the ground. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so if I try another image, right? This one, it not really follow the rules. So the horizon is okay in the middle, but some of the pieces are too close to the center to the camera. So this will look stretched no matter what. Um, Ideally, you want to put 3D objects here to block it. Um, but I will just show you what this looks like. Yeah, I think the tower looks okay because these are very, very, very tall. It could be a part of the sky, right? But the ground is a little bit, problem. So let's drag it in, right? So see, the tower looks fun. It also have this fog. I like it. So for the ground, this thing. Let's play. Right, this all looks good. Yeah, but this thing is a little bit too close to the center. But that's okay. In the future, maybe I will just put 3D objects cover that. Everything else looks good. You have this really nice tower. Um, you can see if you see the depths, right? You have multiple objects in front of it. You can also make adjustment of the scale. If you think this one should not be that far, you can reduce. This is something really nice for this HDR backdrop. Right? You don't have this one when you work on the Maya model. Bring it in. So this one I can reduce the size a little bit more. Maybe I want to change the height a little bit lower. Oh, I think if you lower that, I think some of the image gonna get closer to you, to the center. not too bad. So if I play, yeah, it's not bad at all. Right. So you got a little bit, green stuff, and also have a little bit, details on the ground. I think that's not bad. Okay. And this tower is nice, but I want to probably rotate the Z a little bit. Kind of like the composition this way. Okay, to have the tower more exposed. Yeah, I like it. I think this one is nice. Okay, right. So have this in 3D. All right, I hope this will be useful for you to really think about how to compose a 3D environment with a AI generated 360 or Google Street View 360. You can use either HDR image, or you can use just a regular JPEG. But in that case, you want to apply using my Maya model. I put a model here in the panel in a panorama folder. I believe it's right there. But for those of you who don't have this file, you can easily do this in Maya. It's not that difficult. You just need to create this kind of geometry and just make sure when you have the wireframe, you have some flat surface right at the bottom. That can be done easily in Blender. All right, I hope this tutorial will be helpful for you to understand the nice composition in 3D. Again, think things as layers, different depths, everything really far away from you in the horizon. This could be 360, but something really close to you, you should put this as a 3D, such as small objects, probes close to the center. All right, that's it.